to start that again. Can you hear me? Because I had my microphone. I can hear you. Such a rod man. Welcome to the Filthy Clean Pod. This is episode number 7. We have Mike Strange from GES Exterior Cleaning. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Nice to be here. Nice to eventually meet you.
Yeah, it is.
You know, we've spoken a lot on the phone and etc. So yeah, it's pretty cool to be here.
Yeah. No, without a doubt, it's always good to put a face to a name, you know. And as I was saying outside, it's when you speak for so long, it's you just feel like you know everyone already.
Yeah.
And when you finally meet in person, it's great, you know. So yeah, welcome along.
Congrats on this new establishment, looking pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've given you the guided tour.
There
And
nice. Nice food.
Yeah,
Thanks to your wife.
Yeah, we've had some food as well. So yeah,
Food's always a touch.
Yeah.
welcome. So yeah, today we're going to talk about Mike's journey, Mike's business, and so realistically, it's to start from the beginning. So you're South African.
Yep.
You've come over from South Africa. Just tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I came over here quite a long time, actually, a big part of my adult life. 1994, me and the wife came over. I was sort of in the pub trade and restaurants back in South Africa. I came over to the UK. Again, I'd been here before in sales. And I stumbled into the sports management arena whilst I was over here. So I spent 21 years in sports management and eventually joined a Kiwi guy, and we built up a company called Global Sports Management, where we became the biggest rugby agency in the world, which was pretty cool. We then sold that to a company called the Essentially Group, again, which was pretty cool, and we stayed on there, and we acquired other businesses, and we became very, very big in sponsorship, sports management, football, rugby, and cricket, and it was just a wonderful 21 years representing players, managers, and had offices in Vauxhall next to MI5 building overlooking Big Ben. So it was pretty cool, and offices around the world. And we represented, in terms of rugby, I was kind of Mr. Rugby at the time. So I represented a lot of the All Blacks, the Dan Carters, a lot of Springboks, Aussies, a lot of the Samoans, Fijians, Tongans, and Irish and English. I represent quite a lot of the England rugby players as well, and a lot of international coaches. So it was just, it was great. And in the time that I was in that, I thought, well, I'm going to burn out of this London lifestyle at some point. So I bought a care franchise, actually, which was quite bizarre, something for my wife to run. Unfortunately, that care franchise, the franchise went bankrupt. So we had our own little care business, which is quite cool, but quite daunting, quite taxing on the wife. It's a hard industry, the care industry. But what I did find out is that a lot of carers don't like cleaning. Cleaners don't like caring. And so I set up GES Clean, which was quite a cool thing to do at the time. I was still doing my sports management stuff. Then we closed down the care business and focused on just clean. Then Brexit happened and COVID happened. I got out of the sports game. I thought, let me focus on my cleaning businesses. And we were doing a lot of interior cleaning when COVID happened. So it kind of decimated that business, and we kind of morphed into the exterior cleaning. And I had one of those moments where I had a guy working for me, and we were doing a driveway clean. I think it was, call it 260 pounds. And it was quite an easy with a petrol machine, really early days. I'm going back 4 or 5 years ago. And I had another team down the road doing an end of tenancy clean where they're in a van, 3 cleaners, Eastern Europeans, going to do this also for 260 quid. And I thought, no, this is madness, this is where I want to be. Mm-hmm. And so we closed down the interior GES Clean as it was, and that was the start of GES Exterior Cleaning. I dabbled in GES gardening, and I thought, oh shit, that's not for us at the time. It was,
We feel the pain on that one, don't we?
Just had that conversation.
yeah, yeah, and I think because I'd had so much of volume in the interior cleaning, we were quite successful, and I think even in COVID times, I can't remember, we were 20 or 26 cleaners that we put on, what do you call it? Furlough, yeah. Which is quite unusual, where we were based, because most cleaners were cash in hand and all that. So we looked after our staff very well, and, people came out of that okay, because of what we did. But, and when I started with the GES gardening, it just didn't make any sense because I was doing so much volume in domestic cleaning, and I've now suddenly got another business, again, so many freaking lawns you need to mow to make volume. I thought, that's quite not working, and then so I dabbled with GES jet wash for a very short period of time and realized, well, hang on, that's restricting me calling it GES jet wash, because what is jet washing? I don't want to just do drives and patios. I want to be more than that. And that's when I decided on GES Exterior Cleaning, sort of opens us out to anything exterior we can clean. And it was 2021, I think that's when GES Exterior was kind of launched and incorporated as a company. So yeah, it's been quite a weird and wonderful journey. I was very fortunate that I had a big client base, so it was a bit of an easier transaction.
What do you mean you had a big client base?
Well, from the GES Clean, so we had through our CRM system, we had a big database of existing clients, or clients that were domestic clients and even commercial, the NHS, and we did a lot of, even during COVID, we did a lot of fogging, that kind of cleaning. So it was quite a nice, I could actually just put out a big campaign to people saying we are now doing exterior cleaning drives.
Did you find that work then? Like with them customers, were you able to upsell them?
Yeah.
You were, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it just made it easier, rather than just starting from scratch, just we'd start in GES Exterior Cleaning. I did have some form of a base, a client base to reach out to say, well, this is what we're doing. Do you want your driveway cleaned, your gutters cleaned, your patio cleaned? And then I can't remember what it was, must have been 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the roof cleaning suddenly
became a thing.
And I thought, well, let's crack on with that, and I'll never forget, buying our first little, I think, Rutland pumps. We've always used Rutland for a lot of our stuff and other guys. But I remember buying our first sort of little 8-inch Mosmatic on a pole system and a petrol Honda machine and testing it out on some friends' roofs. And I thought, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. And that's where we just started. And, we did all the courses, the Chris Cloak and them. That was fantastic, the soft washing course that we did. And then just learned, and we just got better and better at it. And we kind of specialized for some reason. My marketing, I think, through the sports management, and I understood a little bit about marketing. I made a lot of mistakes in GES Clean when it comes to scattergun approach. It's like, so I thought, hang on.
Sounds like my life.
Yeah. So, I spent a lot of money on myself personally in sort of going to do, there was a Dan Bradbury that I did. He's up in Warwickshire, we're business mastermind for a year. That was about 15 grand, I think, at the time.
Really?
But it was money well spent just to understand my numbers better. Because whilst, I had this...
He understood his numbers.
Yeah. He's still trying to upsell me, But... and through Dan, I just learned a lot about reading books. I read a lot of stuff now, whether it be self-help books or management books and stuff like that. Every day is a learning day for me. Networking, meeting people, and even going to things and just taking one golden nugget away from something rather than going into something, say, God, that was a crock of shit. There's always something to take in, whether it's a BNI meeting or whatever it might be, So I invested in myself, and I read a lot,
So when did you start investing in yourself then?
Around that time of, in terms of the business stuff, when I was in London, those sort of 21 odd years, we had a marketing director, we had people doing stuff, I was more the face of the business, people signed with me, rugby players, cricket players, and footballers. other people did all these kind of things. So when suddenly I had my own little business, I realized I'm actually not that clever at business. I've got to start learning how to do all these things, from the marketing to the accounting to the understanding my numbers. And I'm still to this day trying to understand my numbers, So, but I've learned over the time there's cleverer people out there. So someone does my Google, someone does the Facebook, learning to pass things on to other people that can make me look a bit more cleverer than I actually am. You know what I mean?
I think you definitely got to have the right people in the right places. You can't do it all, No. But yeah, definitely having a good overall view of it all works, But you definitely got to play to your strengths and get them people that can do the right things for you,
Absolutely. And I think probably to touch on as well, I know you don't drink yourself.
Did.
But, yeah.
Done enough of it to last a lifetime.
Yeah, I did too, and I was an absolute champion at it, and I think it's getting close on 8 years, 7.5 years, where I haven't kind of drunk myself, haven't done any drugs, cocaine. That was a thing of choice as well at some period towards the end of my drinking days, But, because I know there's a lot of people, and it's not industry specific, people just suffer from addiction, alcohol, cocaine, drugs, whatever it might be. And I was one of those people, it's just drank too much. It caught up with me.
Is it not like the lifestyle as well, though? I mean, I don't know if it's stereotypical or not, but if you were an agent, was there a lot of that sort of stuff going on? Or
very much so, but then, what I have learned in sort of my life in exterior cleaning, my life in sobriety, people talk about, my life's changed immeasurably, and it kind of has. I had a good time, but, alcohol really just towards the end became very destructive. The consequences of my drinking, and a lot of people might understand that I'll be going through that. A lot of people say, is there anyone that that has had a problem or an issue with alcohol? If I was talking to an audience and I said, everybody put your hand up, a lot of people put their hand up, say, yes, we know someone, family, friend, that's struggling with alcohol, or a lot of people know they've got a problem, but it's just, where do I get help? How do I address this, I addressed that. I went and I asked help. I went to my doctor and I thought, shit, I've got a big problem, I just was first in, last out. That was how I rolled, There's some people that can go and have 1 or 2 pints. To me, I can't. And
I share the same sentiments. I was what they class as a binge drinker, I think.
Yeah.
Had 5-day hangovers from a session, but just didn't have an off switch. And I'd love to just be able to walk into a pub and have a couple of pints and then walk back out. But my addictive personality doesn't allow for that. So I totally get where you're coming from. It's first in, last out.
And it amazes me. My wife, I go buy her a bottle of wine and she'll have a glass of wine and that bottle will sit in the fridge for a couple of weeks. And I think that's freaking insane, because that wouldn't happen to me.
Yeah, I feel the same about cream cakes. If that's
So it is something that I've got to work on, what I mean? Is my food intake and that. But, it doesn't make us boring people. I still go to the pub, I still do things, but I'm doing so much more without the booze.
Yeah.
And I'm not these holier than thou. I've got nothing against people who drink or
drinkers.
It's just, I just was one of those dudes that I just drank too much.
Yeah.
And I had to put an end to it. And there's no such thing for a person like me, perhaps you, moderation.
Can't do it, yeah.
There is no moderation. It's you're either in or you're out. And I choose to be out, and that's kind of worked for me.
It's a great thing that you've got there, though, isn't it? Because a lot of people can't achieve that, surely,
People struggle with it, and it's tough, it's hard, especially in this day and age where everything seems to be revolve around booze. I think one of the things people are scared about, the thought of not drinking again. How do I go to a wedding? How do I go to a birthday party? How do I get through life without having a freaking beer?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that, to be fair, because it is kind of everywhere. I mean, I don't know whether that's just because I go to the pubs and I play darts and things like that. But
you're a younger bloke as well.
Yeah. The thought of then fair play. It's it's because it's there.
I totally went through it myself. I was never an alcoholic. I was a binge drinker. So I've always said though, if I didn't have the hangovers, I would have been there with you, because I had such severe hangovers. It stopped me from doing it for like 5-6 days, and I get on it again. You know?
Mine are progressively getting worse.
Yeah, they do with age, mate. You know,
a couple of days at a time.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just what you said there. I mean, my thing was always I can't, because I used to play out club nights, DJ, and all that stuff, and it would be like I mean, I'd sort of stopped it by then anyway, but if I got invited to go somewhere or do something, I'd be like, how? I can't do it, because obviously I've got booze around. I can't do this without booze. But what was my saving grace was actually Beck's Blue. So I started on them because I felt like, okay, this is kind of like I'm drinking. Nothing's happening, but it was getting me through that. But then now, I'm sort of 8-10 years in, I think I am, something like that. But now it just doesn't register. And I don't know if it doesn't for you or whether you get tempted, but I'm just simply...
Do you have the alcohol-free drinks at all, the substitutes, or are you just completely...
For me personally, I didn't at the beginning. But then, when we're going back all those years, I think there was Caliber. It was awful stuff. It's like, it wasn't a big thing. I think nowadays we're spoiled for choice. Nowadays, I think, go to pubs now, they've got even the draft beers now, alcohol-free draft beers. The choice is there. It's becoming quite popular on social media. This alcohol-free lifestyle, which I think is pretty cool. So the stigma has gone away to an extent. It's not such a bad thing.
I just don't think the younger generation does it as much. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but my kids and their friends and all of that, I mean, they'd have a drink, but they won't get on it like we used to get on it. It was like,
that's what we say a lot, don't we? I think I was on the back end of that, really, because then everyone now you speak to, they're a lot more careful with it.
Well, you tell us. I mean, you're still in your 20s, but you and your boys still like to get on it.
That's what I'm saying. But now I do suffer for a lot longer when I do that. So we're on the end of it. Not the end of it, but the.
I think part of my journey is that I actually, whilst I had GES Exterior Cleaning, I also thought, to help other people, I actually did sober coaching. So I actually got accredited. I went and did a sort of coaching courses, got certified as a sober coach.
Table mic.
Just
when you bang it, it just vibrates.
So, if people get bored, you can go, I think on TikTok, I'm sober coach Mike. So it's quite a lot of TikTok stuff that I did there.
Okay.
And that was quite nice. I found that quite fulfilling in helping other people. So, and understanding the world of addiction, alcoholism, and how there's many pathways to recovery. You know what I mean? So I went through RCI because their mantra was there is many pathways to recovery. There's people say AA works and hypnotherapy works and there's smart recovery, etc., etc. But you just got to find what works for you, and if it's alcohol-free stuff, that's also cool.
Yeah.
If it's not, for me personally, I didn't at the beginning of my journey because it was recommended to me at the time. We weren't spoiled for choice with all this choice, but is that the association, alcohol-free beer, it's still got the name beer. So you've got to treat I got used to going to a pub and ordering a pint of Coke or lime and soda. That was, for me, good. So I disassociated I'm going to the pub for a beer, whether it be alcohol or non-alcoholic. I got just comfortable with that fact. Over time, when I just got used to being sober, and as you say, I don't really think about it. It's, at the beginning, you're constantly thinking, and occasionally the stress hits you, and, you hit that fuck it button, and I haven't yet, but, life happens.
Yeah.
You have fucking bad days.
I think that's the thing. Like, I wasn't an alcoholic, and I'm not trying to say that, I don't understand your journey as you've done it. But what I do understand is definitely that part is, years ago, I would definitely just go off and get hammered or go missing for a couple of days or whatever it was. But now, being totally sober and having a really stressful life, there is no escape. you got to just live it,
Yeah, you got to live with those feelings.
And you've got to get comfortable with that, and that's the hardest thing, I think, with stress, with all of that. If you haven't got that release, is being able to just be able to, like, I don't know, talk yourself down, or however you do that,
Yeah.
is just to be able to relax, you know, if you can.
Yeah, and that is hard for some people, and it was hard for me as well, just to learn to sit with those feelings, because the real go-to for a lot of people, it's not so much the booze. The booze is just the escapism from the problem.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so it's identifying.
Numbing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a numbing. It's a little Band-Aid. You
Yeah.
know, it's just, God, you're having a freaking bad day. The easy thing is just go to the pub, because you can just...
All your troubles are gone.
Well, they're all gone, mate, until you wake up the next
Yeah.
day and they've now compounded,
Yeah.
and they've got even worse, and you've got a hangover to go with all the shit that you had forgotten about the day before.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I see guys today, you know, they're going to work, you know, Monday, they're working to go and get lashed in the pub on the weekend and doing cocaine. You think
The weekend warriors.
yeah, you know, and then coming to work on a Monday morning sniveling and saying they got hay fever. I know it's not hay fever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's, you know, and from a business point of view, you know, if you really drill down to it, you know, if you say to guys, board of CEOs or something like that, you know, if you're only operating at 60%, you know, you're turning over £1 million and you're only operating at 60% because Monday and Tuesday you're still a bit rough from Saturday and Sunday, and so you only got 2-3 days of working in the week. You know, can you imagine that what that 1 million turnover would be if you're operating at sort of 90%? You know, you'd increase your turnover. So those are penny drop moments for some people when it comes to how is alcohol affecting not just your life, you know, your marriage, your relationships with everything else, but how's it affecting your business?
Yeah.
You know, if you're a serious business person, you want to thrive in business, alcohol isn't helping unless you're generally that one guy that goes and has 1 pint, you know. But
I know some of them, and I don't know how they do it, to be fair.
Yeah.
There's a few people I know, that will happily go for the odd one, and
Is
that's...
that not something you could do? I thought you could just go for a couple, or do you get the flavour?
Well, you get a taste for it, don't you, really? I like the casual drink here and there, but on the ones that will go on like a night out with the mates, or whatever, and still only have the odd one. If it's a night like that, then it don't happen. But a nice quiet one in the week or something, you know. That's.
And you know, I don't want this to come across as I've boozy's wrong and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's just.
It's like everything in life is moderation, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know.
But as we said earlier, for some people, the moderation
And that's
isn't an option.
Totally, I get that.
And I
you know?
get that, because most people's argument when they've got an issue, I'll just moderate or use willpower, and that tell that to someone who's got a problem with alcohol, it just doesn't work, you know. But it's, I don't know, accepting that you've got an issue with alcohol is the first problem. It's the first thing, you know.
But again, I think that's with all problems, you know. It's like, just accepting that there is a problem, and then it gives you something to address. It's the people that kind of say, I'm okay, or it's all right, or, you know, that there isn't a problem, essentially, you know. You're kind of telling yourself a lie, so to speak. And for you to overcome that problem, you need to identify that there is a problem.
Yeah.
So,
and just ask and get some help, you know what I mean? There's no shame in, you know, it's, admitting and thinking, shit, maybe I do have a problem. Maybe I
think for some it's probably too painful to face that, isn't it? It's facing your fears, isn't it? You know, it's much easier just to sit at the bottom of a pint or whatever the problem is for you, you know. I think we spoke about this on the last podcast where we're saying about mental health and stuff, and so many sort of men, you know, feel like they have to man up or whatever it is and don't want to feel vulnerable. And, you know, the truth of it is that's a crock of crap, you know. It's the way to overcome stuff is to seek help, is to try and address stuff and work your way through it the best you can, you know.
And I think nowadays as well, there's so many methods and ways to do that, you know, through wellness programs, through, I don't know, the meditation. There's just stuff out there that's accessible nowadays just to get through. You know, I used to suffer from anxiety and depression, and you know, and I drank on it all the time, and I still have those moments, but I just deal with them differently now.
I'm the same.
I have different coping mechanisms, and I you know, I just do a morning reading type thing, just change my life a little bit, you know.
We often talk about it, though, don't we, with the anxiety. It's like, you know, like for me, I'm an anxiety sufferer, and you pay me lots of compliments to say that, you know, you are overcoming and, you know, things are getting better. But it's just, when you haven't got that release, I think that's the hardest thing, is because you've got to sit with them feelings, as you say. Yeah. And before, it was much easier just to go and get blottoed on whatever you want to do, to just take that pain away. But, you know, gently or bit by bit, if you address it, you can overcome it, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, for me as well, I was going to say it's accountability. You know, like I've given up the smoking again, and that's like, we're talking about the addiction, obviously. Smoked for years, and then in terms of holding ourselves accountable, teamed up with my old man at the same time to back up, because we found really that we've both sort of half-heartedly gone about it ourselves. So easy after a long day or weekend with a beer as well, you know, but then actually doing it at the same time, it's helped us to just actually say, look, we've got to knock it on the head, do it together, and then get through it that way.
I suppose that's like having a gym buddy or something like that.
Yeah.
You know? It's just being accountable.
Accountability parts, that all work, you know, and in this day and age, you know, there's so many, you know, on TikTok and Facebook, you know, these alcohol-free groups, these, I don't know, groups that are just, you can go have parties on the Thames now with an alcohol-free boat full of people, you know. But, you know, the funny thing, you talk about giving up smoking, you know, still to this day, you know, if you go in somewhere and you say to someone, shit, I've given up smoking, people say, shit, that's awesome, well done. You know, if you go to someone and say, shit, I've given up drinking, they say, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? You know what I mean?
Depends what company you're in, but
yeah, you know what I mean? How bizarre is that? You know what I mean? It's just weird. It's like, I don't drink.
Says a lot about your friends.
You know, so I grew up, my father always said, I never trust a man that doesn't drink. Shit, if only you could see me now. You know what I mean?
That was good, a good bit of absorbing information. It's going to set you in good ways. Yeah. But totally understand that. So let's talk a bit about then exterior cleaning. So where are you currently now? So you've got a few vans, teams.
We kind of got two vans. You know, I kept it slow and steady. I've stopped the sober coaching to an extent. I consult for a company in London, and that takes up maybe one day max a week. It just keeps me in there, in that sort of sober and helping other people. You know, I'm a firm believer, the more you give, the more you'll get.
Okay.
You know? And it helps me in my journey. But I'm really focused this year is to really shore up GES Exterior Cleaning. And the GES actually is my wife's initials.
It's been a burning question. I kept meaning to get that in. What does it stand for? Yeah.
So that's
trying to put two and two together.
Gillian Eve Strange.
Okay.
You know, and she's kind of the rock of the business. You know, most people would know that. You know, she's been there through thick and thin with me, and back in even the deep darkest days of drinking and all that. You know, she's stuck by me. I think we've been married 30 years, so it's been a great journey. But the exterior cleaning has been good. You know, we've done it slow. All the work that I've put in over the years, understanding business, understanding the numbers, a little bit about marketing. I've just done things pretty slowly. I'm a firm believer in systems and processes and numbers, so I think we've done that quite well. I'm not far from freaking perfect or knowing everything. I learn, I ask a lot of questions, I read a lot of stuff. That's why I'm kind of mates with people like you. You know, you look at your peers and you think, what have they done? You know, how have they got to where they are? So we don't have to make the same mistakes, you know. And good business people and good guys will actually share information and help others. Others will keep everything close to their chest. Mm-hmm. I don't.
Don't either.
Keeps me on my toes, keeps me hungry and keeps me busy.
Well, that is funny, really. That randomly always takes me back. I don't really get people like that. We used to go fishing when I was younger as a kid, and you'd go around and you'd just ask someone for like a gentle bit of advice, and so many people would be so closed book, like don't want to see you do well because it would affect them. Yeah. I mean, this was fishing just around a local lake, and people are sort of like that in business and just want to keep cards close to their chest, obviously, just because they think you might be treading on their toes or, you know.
I had a guy recently he reached out to me, and he's been in New Zealand for a year, English guy, and I put a post on, I think about a year ago, just saying if there's any guys who want some experience or want to come tag on with us. And he reached out to me and he said, and he lives down the road from me, but he's going to start his own little business. He doesn't want to get into roof cleaning because it's not what he wants to do. He's scared of heights, but he wants to do drives and patios.
And bungalows.
Yeah. But, I said, yeah, by all means, come and jump on, you know what I mean? So, I've steered him in the right directions, where he should go buy his machine from, what courses he should be doing and all that. And he's come on and he can't thank me enough, just helping him. He's been joining the team. I've been paying him. Selfishly, he's helped us, getting a few jobs done. But he's learnt now from, I've got Shane and Jake and my eldest son, Connor, who's in the business, who's learning from them. So it's fine. I don't mind. He's going to start his little patio and driveway cleaning little business. He's down the road from me, and hopefully when we very busy, I can just pass on some work. One, he's worked with us, he's trained with us, he knows our style, and our sort of work ethic and our and a little bit back to your quick question about how we've done. I think we're just short of 300 Google reviews now.
Oh, really?
Which is, I think, quite phenomenal. So I think we're probably one of, if not the most reviewed exterior cleaning company in Surrey, but that's taken me a lot of hard work, through my systems and processes in how our customer service, and a lot of that stuff that I brought in from our sports management business, from GES Clean. Our communication is good. If you look at our Google reviews, and I try to reflect that in our teams, the guys are very proud in what they do. And it shows, so the hard work I did 12 months ago is now showing fruition. I was saying to you earlier, just this year to date, I think it's 18% of our work that we've done is through referral.
Yeah, I was amazed at that.
Which is good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, a year ago, it might have been, 5%. I don't know. It's just I've understood my numbers better now. The data.
You said that was through Jobber that's been helping you.
Yeah, so we use a Jobber, which is our CRM system. So that just gives me enough data for me to actually gauge my marketing. I know what my average ticket is per job. What is our average roof clean that we do over the last 12 months. It can tell me what I've done in the year. Tells me exactly what team member, how much revenue they've produced each year. And then I have another thing called Nice Job, which does all my reviews, links to my CRM. And I have another thing called Company Cam, which is our before and after photos, which is linked directly to Jobber, and again directly linked to my website. So if you go on our website, you'll see case studies. Literally press of a button, it links straight to the website. So kind of simple things that I initiated some time ago that is now kind of making my life a little bit easier. So now it's the next thing, just on the way up here, listening to a podcast. How can I better my sort of marketing? Some AI stuff, I'm trying to get my head around this AI.
Yes, yeah.
How do we
obviously
improve that?
A buzzword, isn't it? It's like
it is.
I'm still not there with it all yet. I don't really. I use it myself just to sort my text out writing, but I don't really. I might use it for a few ideas maybe, but that's about the limit. I know you can really get intricate into it, And
I just heard on the podcast on the way up here, it's this home services podcast. There's a guy, David Moorman, who again, I spent money with him. He's got a pressure washing company in Canada called Revive, and he does coaching. It's the home business coaching something. And he's linked to Jobber as well. But he was brilliant. I had 6 months of coaching with him, and he was like my accountability buddy when I was starting up in the exterior. Where weekly tasks, a group of us would catch together on Zoom. What have we done? These are the tasks for the week. Have you done your whatever the task is? And he's got a £3 million exterior cleaning business, $3 million. And he very much is numbers and all this. And so I learned so much from him. Again, so that set me up. I now need to know When you know, you know. When you don't know, you don't know.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of guys in our trade that maybe just because they don't understand the business side of things. So you see guys pricing jobs where they haven't actually thought about it, you know.
Well, that's what you come up against, though, isn't it? And that's what we were sort of talking about is, and we were talking earlier that, you know, there's a lot of guys that still don't price jobs as a business.
Yeah.
They price it as a job.
Yeah.
So I can earn 500 quid out of this or whatever for 3 days work, and not look at it as a business, as in the business is its own thing. And you need to make sure you've got the headroom and the profit to be able to grow and, or not necessarily grow if you don't want to grow, but just to retain a sustainable business, you know?
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of guys, and I think as business owners, we always come across it. There's always that one technician or guy working for you that sees you charging 700 quid for a driveway, thinking, hell, I can go do that myself. You know, it's tough.
Of course it is, yeah.
We've been consistently busy for 3 years now, every single day. I don't think there's a day, unless it's been snowing like mad or frozen over, that we haven't worked. That's me creating the work, you know. Pretty hard on your own to go and get a driveway clean 500 quid a day, every day.
Yeah, in terms of marketing then, how do you get your leads?
Most of our stuff is Google.
Okay.
So we pay per click. I've got a company, AdSmith, that do our Google. I try to do it myself years ago, but it was just painful. You know, I was 1, 2 o'clock in the morning trying to work out all these, and then pressing the wrong button, and I didn't understand it, but I'd learnt enough through trial and error and just researching and doing my thing that someone couldn't quite easily pull the wool over my eyes, you know, whereas a couple of years ago, you know, you had all these ad agencies, everybody tells this wonderful story, how good they are. I didn't have a clue, and I'd say, yeah, let's go for it, you know, and then I'd get burnt. So I made the effort to actually learn about Google, Facebook advertising, Google advertising, what does a CTR mean, you know, what are the KPIs, you know, so I've got sort of these certain KPIs which are important to me, you know, what is my cost per click, what is my return on investment, that's the key one for me, you know, what am I spending, what am I getting in, you know, so at the moment, you know, I think we're spending about 20% turnover on marketing, which isn't ideal, you know, so I've got to work hard to bring that down, you know. I think for a business like us, we should be at 12.
It's about standard though, I think, on Google, is it not?
Could be, yeah, you know, but those are kind of tweak things, but, you know, the fact that I've got an idea 2-3 years ago, I wouldn't have a clue. If someone said, well, you're going to charge me this and you might bring in that. So I've got it very clear. So my Google guys every month give me a report. So I know for the render cleaning, for the driveways, the patios, the roof cleaning, gutter cleaning, what am I spend on each of those keywords? What is my return on my jobber, my CRM? I get people fill in the request form. They have to click the box, where did you find us? Referral, leaflet, Google, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is, you know. So I've just got a better way of understanding where my leads are coming from, what I can tweak, what I can't tweak. We don't do a lot of TikTok. I'm trying to get better at that. Just got ourselves a drone. So I just need a pilot.
Fly it.
Yeah, I just need a pilot now. You know,
Won't take you long.
So yeah, we do TikTok, and I've just got a company now. I have a company that does all my call answering called MyPA. They're very good, which I think is very key to have. You know, you've got office here. For us as a small business, I can't be sat. I'm not on the tools. I do all the assessing, and I try and work on the business, not in the business, which is quite important. I'm almost too old to be on the freaking tools anymore. But, you know, but so I earn my crust elsewhere. But the call answering is brilliant for us, and it's worked. I know how much they charge me, but a person calls our offices and people are answering on behalf of GES Exterior Clean, filling in the request forms, telling us what's going on. you only get one crack at it. You know, you spent all this money on Google, and if you've got use your answer phone, and you don't get back to people, it's a waste of money.
Yeah.
So that works for us. And that same company now, I'm spending some money. They're doing my Facebook post. I think they're doing 10 posts a week. And that's really, I don't expect too much from it. It's branding.
Yeah. We have this conversation a lot about social media, and we're still getting the majority of our leads through AdWords, pay-per-click basically. Facebook. We don't do roof cleaning with Facebook. I'd like to come on to that because we can talk about how dismal that is, or has been for us, and you know, we were sharing them sentiments earlier. But it's well, let's actually come on to that a bit. I mean, so with Facebook, it's we've done it. I don't know when because obviously Rory was doing it pre you being here.
We were doing it. I'm pretty sure it was last summer for a good few months.
What was it, about 3 or 4 months?
3 or 4 months, yeah. To be fair, the level of inquiry, we had, don't know how many leads off the top of my head, but yeah, going here, there and everywhere for them, and just weren't paying off. You know, we got a few from it, as you would, but for the level we were getting, it was a lot of time wasted.
I mean, that's what we weighed up, wasn't it? It's how much time you were spending on this, where
it's the
really,
quality of the leads. That was the thing.
And if you weren't doing that, what would you be doing? And as soon as we decided that isn't for us and we stopped it, then you were just much more proactive in trying to work on getting us the work we did need. That was right in what we're saying.
Yeah.
But absolute dog poo in my opinion. You know, but I know it works for some. My understanding, I don't know who, but that's what I get told. So.
I mean, for me, 9 times out of 10, that's where it was coming down to the price. And that was what we was finding on there. Like I say, with the quality of the leads, as soon as we was talking about the price, really, that was the majority of all they cared about. Yeah, pretty much. That was the end of the call.
Yeah.
Yeah, we found it, I wouldn't say hit and miss. It kind of worked, but I couldn't justify the time that I was on the road for all these leads. They weren't the quality of leads for my kind of business. I charge quite a lot, you know what I mean? So I think for people who maybe charge less, it might work better, because
it's got to be.
It's could have smashed through them.
Yeah,
you know, you could have had a great return on them, really, if we were half the price, maybe. Do you know what I mean? But that's across the board, isn't it?
Yeah. So since we stopped Facebook, it's freed up a lot of time for me, and our turnover has gone up. You know, and what I'm saving off Facebook spend, I'm spending a fraction of that on someone else just doing organic Facebook posts for me. You know, to Facebook groups and that, before and after pictures and stuff like that. So
you had anything from them?
No, it's only a month in.
Okay.
You know, so I'm not expecting miracles. It's just about branding. You know, it goes along with 360 Google ads. You know, bit of Facebook, TikTok stuff. What you guys are doing in your podcasts and that. It's just building up your image and your brand. But what brings the money in is Google ads at the moment, and that works for us. You know, people are searching. Want a roof clean. Roof clean is near me, you know. So I suppose, you know, SEO at some point will be something that I'll work on, other strategies. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I mean, they're saying now about SEO and that it's not as powerful as it was, and with all the AI coming in, and just Google not being as powerful as it was, because a lot more people are using social medias, AIs, or whatever they are to find people, YouTube as well. But for us, it's still the strongest thing, isn't it? Google. And I mean, we don't necessarily know where every single lead comes from. We have a good idea, but it still is very much pay per click, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that was one thing that I took from what you were saying a minute ago. Is just about identifying on every single quote request form, or exactly where they're coming from, because it's a little thing like that. I mean, 9 times out of 10 we can work that out, and even speaking with them, we get to know that anyway. But that's just another thing. Data collection, isn't it? Just to suss.
Yeah, a classic example of how the data doesn't lie, the numbers don't lie. So Jobber, our CRM, from before we stopped the Facebook paid ads campaigns, my close rate, because Jobber tells me what my close rate is. So from a request to a job, I think it was something like, I don't know, 33%, 32%. From the day to now of not doing Facebook and only Google, I think we're closer to 50% close rate. So it kind of shows you that something was clearly wrong then. Now I'm doing less assessments, but closing more, and my turnover has gone up, and I'm less stressed. It's like,
bonus.
Yeah, so like
there was that,
triple
though,
whammy.
wasn't there? As you say, when you were going through it, it was like you were just spending so much time on nothing, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you always want to try and, like you say, focus on every inquiry as an opportunity, isn't it? And I wanted to then try and go to as many as well, but I was
And it was
finding
all the
that just
deals you had
couldn't-
to
couldn't
give.
have
You
to.
had to throw in a patio.
Flogging
clean.
everything, yeah.
But it was all like
Just for the sake
shit
of
money, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we know we're not the cheapest by far, and that's the challenge you come up against. But we obviously try and sell it on, like again with all the YouTube stuff and everything else, is trying to build that trust. And like you said, you're trying to go for a higher ticket customer that buys into you as opposed to just I want a cheap roof clean. You know?
Yeah. I think that's what I touched on earlier as well, was that we end up changing the conversation. Normally it's always about obviously how we want to try and help them as much as possible in the service and what that can add, but they were just interested in price, the majority of them. So that was soon addressed a lot earlier in the conversations of with the customer, so that as soon as they knew the price, that was the end of the call pretty much, or like it or leave it sort of thing.
Yeah, it's that price thing, you know what I mean? And I think it's a difficult one, from someone who's just starting out or someone who's a little bit more established. There's guys who've been in much longer than me in the game, turning over a lot more. I'm just I try and just stay in my lane and what works for me. And I think what's worked for me as well these last 3-4 years is learning to say no, and really staying in my lane.
What you mean, no, as in if they're trying to knock you on the price or something?
Well, no, not even from a pricing point of view, but just what do we do? What do we? Years ago, I would tackle anything if someone came and did. Can you also come and mow my lawn as well as you do the thing? I was going, yeah, okay, we can just stick a lawnmower in and do that. I don't do it. Any bigger ticket stuff that's out of my comfort zone, I'll pass on and do a JV with someone else, which kind of works for me. I try and do better at what we do well and stay in that until some point where I'm confident enough or my team's capable enough.
And you've got the volume of work to do it.
And I've got the volume of work and my guys are skilled up enough from a training point of view, to take on bigger challenges, bigger, massive render cleans, bigger, so it's just a work in progress, you know what I mean? But at the moment, we're busy, we fully booked till the end of May, I think, starting to take bookings into June, which is good, I'd like to book longer, but it is what it is, and I think there's a lot of guys saying they're booked out for 3-6 months. I think if we were cheaper, we probably could be booked out for longer, but our profits wouldn't be the same.
Doesn't work for you. It doesn't fit into the model, does it? So
it doesn't fit into my model. I know what we kind of get out of bed for. I know what the business needs to pay my staff well, overheads, everything that comes with running a business and a bit of growth. There's certain limitations that I cannot go lower than that. If I did go, yes, I'd be booked out for longer, but I wouldn't be in business for too long. I'd be like a lot of guys, come and go.
But no, it is. It's just trying to work out what's right for you and what's right for your business, isn't it?
Yeah, and what might be right for me might not be right for someone else. So it's really understanding what works for you.
But yeah, it is. But I still think you need to be pricing well because it is a race to the bottom otherwise, Yeah. Of course, we can all start slashing prices and doing whatever, but it just means minimal profits or no profit or even going out of business or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So what other challenges do you face then? So have you had any real headaches? Have you has anything been really catastrophic? I can't get my words out, but has something really gone wrong,
No, we've been quite lucky, touch wood, not too much. We've had to do, I think 4 years probably, we've had one insurance claim where I think we got done. It was early on, and people were doing some renovation or something, and I think they knew they had this whole hole in the roof thing, and water came in, and it was just awful, you know what I mean? But, we went through insurance, and it got sorted. The one thing that we've learned over, as long as we learn by your mistakes, nothing catastrophic, but each job we go to now, and the teams, I've got quite strict operating procedures, from a roof clean to driveway to patio cleaning, even the gutter cleans. There's a procedure, before we're arriving at the job, we're telling the customers we're there. When we get to the job, we introduce ourselves to the neighbors, we take the downpipes off, etc., 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 all good stuff. But one most important thing is through our app called Company Cam. When I do the assessments, I take pictures so that the guys know before they even get to the job, if we get the job, the pictures are there on their phones because it's on Company Cam, it's linked to my CRM. That's pretty cool. So even the day before they get shit, that's going to take us X amount of time. When they get to the job, they've got to look for any pre-existing damage. So if it's on a roof clean, they're up on the tower and they're taking detailed pictures of any hairline cracks, anything that's untowards, identify it to the client, say, oh, you're aware, because we had been burned 3 years ago, again, where you go do a roof clean and the guy says, that looks nice, but there's 10 tiles broken, and the technician says, but they were already broken. Who's right, the client or... So photographic evidence, safeguarding, and walking around doing the risk assessments. Is there anything, so you just be cautious, throw caution to the wind.
So has anyone tried to say you've done that damage, but then you can show them a photo to say it was there already?
Yep. Yeah, it's worked for us on numerous occasions, because sometimes that moss is just disguising, especially on roofs. Same with patios, people say, oh, you're taking all the grout out. No, it was already, here's the picture. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay, so you don't get it right every time, but you try and mitigate the risk. You try and do all you possibly can with the tools that you have to stop this stuff from happening, because there's going to be chances out there, And I think, as well, like Pure Seal, we talked about it earlier, there's other guys do training courses. Pure Seal we use all their products and, done their training courses, the modules that they offer. Just kind of works for us, We've got one company that supplies us our chemicals. They've got a handbook that you can now buy with all their chemicals, so that it's in the vans. There's a checklist, what it's for, what the dilution rates are, etc. Again, it's just mitifying those things that could go wrong. You try and stop
try and minimise it.
Just try and minimise it,
So where do you see yourself going long term? What's your end goals? Or
it's an interesting question. If you had asked me 20 years ago, I would have said to you, I want to retire at 55. It hasn't quite worked out that way.
Be a great thing.
For me, it's just to create a nice, profitable lifestyle business. That's. I've always said this to my staff. I've got guys who've been with me for quite a long time. I've been very transparent with them, with our numbers, where we want to go. The more I earn, the more they're going to earn. Pretty simple in that. And I think most guys will tell you in business, or business coaches and that will tell you, you should be treating your business like you're going to sell it every day. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to sell it, because it might not be selling. If I was a 30-year-old youngster, I'd be having a different train of thought. I'd be thinking, shit, I want to sell this at 40. Because most businesses, you don't sell them for enough that you can just go sit in Ibiza. Mm-hmm. You've got to start something else again. I'm not at that luxury of that age where I can be asked starting again.
You were telling me about Colonel Sanders earlier. You could start another KFC.
That's it. Started KFC at 63 or 64. That's me. So for me, it's just sustainability of what we've got, improving what we've got. We've had 100% growth each year since 2021 on turnover, you know. And I put a lot back into the business, you know. So it's just growing, made a few mistakes along the way, a bit more experience now, a little bit wiser. And so this is the year for me to just shore up and steady the ship with some more growth, you know. So next year, have another van, you know, have another team. I'm thinking of possibly, because what my business lacks is, you know, like you guys have got window cleaning, which gives you a sustainable monthly income. I'm thinking of actually revisiting the gardening services, just because that will give me my monthly residual income.
Isn't that seasonal though?
It might just be seasonal, you know, and that's just a risk that I kind of take. It just means I've got two businesses that are kind of seasonal. Got to make that much more in the summer.
It's just not that much money in it though, is it? We started to look at it, didn't we?
Yeah, would you have that much of a sort of client base to...
Well, you know, we've got, if I look at my database of 3,000-4,000 people over the years, you know, that we can sort of push out to. And again, it's depending, 10 years ago, maybe not. I need something that doesn't have to be extravagantly huge, but something that's going to give us that monthly turnover. It might not be gardening, but I'm thinking and planning about something for next year. So that if I do launch it, it's with thought, it's with the right person, that I've got 3 months salary in the tank. I'm not desperate Dan trying to do cutting some lawns on a low budget or something. So, you know, these are kind of things that I'm thinking about, but that'll just give me, and it might be window cleaning, I don't know. Yeah. It might be gardening, but I think the business, because at the moment we one-offs, you know, once you've done a roof clean, you know, unless you're going to go respray the roof with Bayer in the next 18 months or 3 years, or, you know, they might get their patio driveway done, but generally it's classed as one-off work. It's not like you can predictably say, like with your window cleaning, next year we're going to turn over X amount unless someone leaves the country or they cancel their service. Mm-hmm. And that's what was nice thing about domestic cleaning, was you could predict that. And if you were in the mindset of selling business, a potential buyer prefers to buy something that's got some value down the line, not, well, how much did you do last month and how much are you going to do next year? Well, I don't know, because it's all one-off jobs. So these are just kind of things that I think about, you know, just from a purely business point of view. It doesn't affect the outcome. We're doing okay. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's to get to, you know, increase my turnover, increase the workload. It puts pressure on me because I've now got to get the work in, you know, as you grow. Excuse me, more bums on seats, more salaries, more PAYE, more pension contribution, more, you know.
There we know. In that sense, yeah. I mean, we have that, don't we? Obviously, the more we're trying to grow, it's daily, weekly, monthly,
hourly.
I mean, my phone's been going off the whole time we've been sitting here, because that's trying to sort of work out for the immediate future. But then equally, you know, like you said about earlier, being booked up for a while, you know, it's nice now, especially with the weather and things. Yeah. You know, we've got a lot of things in the pipeline, and we're looking good.
There were some sad conversations in January, wasn't it?
Well, that's what got us talking about gardening all of a sudden, wasn't it? Well, is there any lawns that need cutting around here?
We've got to do something here.
But then, you know, we work through that, and we've got some good stuff coming up.
Yeah, and it's just challenging, you know. I remember, same with us, you know, sort of November, December, January, it was squeaky bum time. It was like freaking hell, because, you know, all the outgoings are still the outgoings.
Doesn't stop.
And it's, you know, money's not coming in.
I must admit, though,
becomes tight.
Window cleaning is what saw us through. There's no two way about it. It was difficult. It was hard, because obviously we haven't got the volume of window cleaning for the amount of men we've got, but we were able to kind of get it there with the little amount of work that we were bringing in, wasn't it? But it's I can imagine if you were just exterior cleaning, then surely you had minimal work then, did you not?
Well, we were busy, you know. For somehow every year we're still doing roof cleans right through December, and not as many, but turnover dropped significantly. Yeah. And then you have this 1 week of snow and freezing, and 2 weeks.
Didn't have any snow though, did we? Did you have any snow?
Not snow, but there was those freezing spells, and also you know, there's the sun comes up later and it goes down earlier. You know, you've got, and it's just shit to work in those conditions. You know, it's just not pleasant. But you know, we got through it. But this year, I'm saving that much more. You know, so I'm planning a little bit better for this December. And
that's exactly what
I think we've all had the same conversations, haven't we?
Yeah.
Not again.
And I don't think, you know, because I know gutter cleaning and all that, I just didn't prepare from a marketing point of view. I didn't prepare well enough, you know, I wasn't.
I must admit, though, we've never had a December and January like that, though. I know that we've grown over the years, so it's probably a different, I don't know, different to what it was. But yeah, I've never known it like that. But I mean, we've had that big contract though that saw us through a couple of winters. Is that correct?
Yeah.
We didn't have that. That's now come more into the spring and the summer. But yeah, it was. But then I know of a lot of other guys that I spoke to. They all said the same thing, that it was just horrendous.
Yeah.
Don't know why, but
Just couldn't get anywhere with anyone, really. Like, no one was. Some were obviously still about, but the majority that we're talking about for the rest of the year just weren't having it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just a challenge, you know, and it's just, you know, what'll be. But as long as I can prepare the best that I possibly can for that. For the next time round.
Exactly what we've said.
That I can't control what I can't control.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, put some money in the tank just for that, so I'm not too stressed. You know, but yeah. So you know, going back to, you know, what are the plans? You know, I think next year we'll be in business 5 years. So you know, that's I look at that as a success in itself. You know, not a lot of businesses
Get to that point,
you know. So we've kind of done it, you know. I've got some good dudes working for me. I've got some good dudes coming on board, you know. And so I've got an onus on them to progress, give them some chance of growth within the company. I don't want to be doing this forever, you know. And a sort of a 5-year plan that allows me to not exit the business, perhaps sell it. I don't know, but the business hopefully within the next 5 years will be running on its own with perhaps minimal input from me, because, you know, there's a wonderful book by Dan Sullivan called Who Not How, you know, and it's really just the art of delegating and actually finding those people that are more clever than you to do things better than you. So I'm just not quite there yet, but I know where I need to get that marketing guy, to get that ops guy, to get the production manager kind of guy. But it's all comes with a plan, understanding when can the business afford these things. At the moment, I'm wearing all the hats. My wife's wearing a lot of the hats, you know, and the guys on, you know, Jake and Shane and Connor and the guys, they take quite a bit of responsibility themselves. So, you know, and a few other guys as well. But we'll get there. You know, every year has been progress. So we haven't gone backwards. We're not going sideways. We're going forwards.
Good.
And I'm going to try and maintain that, and, you know, just enjoy it. You know what I mean? It's like, it could be worse. Could be worse. I could have a freaking desk job. You know what I mean?
You have to be grateful for what you've got, and I think that's hard to take stock of sometimes. You know, when you're in the thick of it, it could be hard to sort of take a step back and realise exactly what you've got.
And I think that's also in terms of like my sobriety and that, you know, it's just understanding little things about life, about gratitude and just being grateful. And, you know, there's always someone worse off than you. You know what I mean? Giving a little bit back and just trying to be kind and kind of nice. You know, I always tell people it costs nothing.
It doesn't, yeah.
Just to be a decent bloke, you know what I mean? You know, I can't be... Not everybody's going to like me or anything, you know, and you kind of rub people up. I don't know, but, you know, you just try your best at being nice, you know, being a little bit grateful for what we have, you know.
Okay. So just on a quick one, because I think we're running out of time, what advice would you give then if someone's listening to this now and they're thinking about getting into the business or they're just starting out? What's the sort of you know, what inspiration would you give them? What tips would you give them?
I would say kind of just be brave and be confident. One of the key things is be confident in your pricing, because once you start dipping in and going too low, it's just a recipe for disaster, you know. You're just scraping the barrel, you know, and you know, take a few risks, you know, calculated risks, backed up by some thought and in the whole process and why you're taking the risk, you know, because you get one chance, you know, just go for it, you know, and I think also listen to the right people, you know. There's an old saying about you're only as good as the 5 people that you surround yourself with. You'll become those 5 people. So watch who you follow on Facebook, you know, follow the right people, you know, follow the guys who relatively successful, who've been there, done it, ask the right questions. I would say read a lot of books. If you've never read a book, like I hadn't really read any management books or anything like that. There's enough books out there in Google, you know, how to start a small pressure washing business and that. Read, absorb, listen, you know, ask the right questions, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially on the self-development front. Just keep listening, keep you know, reading books. I mean, books are so, I don't know. I know they're like, it takes a long time to get through a book, and you have to, you know, everyone's got a short attention span nowadays. They all want it within 60 seconds on TikTok, but you do learn so much. And even if you can't read, Audible, you know, it's but listen to the right stuff and just look to improve yourself in business and personally, you know, goes a long way.
And there's a thing, you know, like podcasts, you know, like even on drive up here today, you know, I just learned, I sort of wrote them down while I was driving, you know, one book, I've written it down, you know, how to start a small business by some guy because the person on the podcast recommended it, you know, and the home service business podcast is the one thing David Murman, he's brilliant. It's such a great podcast for small pressure washing businesses.
Okay.
People should have a listen to him, you know, and there's a few others, you know.
Okay. Well, it's been really good. I'm going to have to wrap up because I've got my videographer telling me what time we've got left. So, it's been really good, and it's genuinely nice to meet you. Like I said, I've been speaking a lot on the phone, and just good luck in the future, and thanks for coming on. So,
pleasure. It's been awesome. Finally to meet you. That's good.
So thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you've enjoyed that, and please leave a comment, like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and we'll catch you soon. So thank you very much and see you soon. Cheers.